Welcome to Solo Travel Adventures, my sisters. Don't let fear hold you back from traveling alone. I want you to gather your courage, listen to inspiring stories, and learn how to travel solo while safely navigating new places from this show. I'm Cheryl Esch, solo travel advocate and travel coach, and I want you to have a transformative experience when you travel solo. So pack your bags, book your flight, and check one more time for that passport. It's time to explore the world. Well, do you struggle with having the courage to go on your first solo trip? Well, I hear from many of you women, whether it's via email or through the Facebook group that I have. And then just recently, I was at a dinner party on Saturday night, and there was two women there that are about 54, and both of them expressed just, not having the courage enough to go on a solo trip. So I'm going to share with you 3 tips to help you develop courage to, get beyond those fears so you can take that first solo trip of yours. Or maybe you've traveled a lot, but always with somebody. So these are some great ways to help you get past that, to develop that confidence in yourself, to build your courage so that you can go on that solo trip instead of waiting around for somebody, right? Sometimes that is the issue. So your first thing that you need to do is, number 1, take action. Okay, even a small step forward will give you momentum, will increase your confidence. Take action. Now, we might think, well, I'm going to research. Research is taking action on where you want to go, but don't get stuck in the loop of just sitting there indecisively and just doing research. Take action, whether that's a big leap into booking that airfare, right? Jumping on maybe a good price, or maybe it's something smaller and you just want to take a little weekend away somewhere by yourself. Do it. Take action. Now, I know many of you know who Tony Robbins is, and I'm reminded of, what he kind of stresses in his seminars is he really wants people to take action. All right. So that's kind of, thinking about what is that next step that I could be taking and what should I do? Take action, because as you take action, you start to develop this momentum. Thinking about, more and more what you can do, and then building that confidence as well along the way. So that would be number 1 tip. I would say, take action. Don't be indecisive. Do something that makes you take those steps forward to doing that solo trip, right? Number 2, we want to face our fears. All right. So I would first identify maybe one of your fears. It doesn't have to be a travel fear. It could just be a fear in general. So as we get stronger and we face our fears, then again, we become more confident. A lot of times you might want to think about, what is your fear? I would say do the opposite, right? Or maybe you're afraid of heights. Some people kind of address that by climbing a ladder little by little, But there's a quote, as I'm sure you're all familiar with. And actually, there's 2 versions of it. And the first one is, we're probably familiar with the one from Roosevelt, where he says that courage is not the absence of fear. But I like the one from Nelson Mandela. It says, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man, or woman in our case, is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So I'm encouraging you to conquer your fears. That could be a fear in everyday life, or it could be a fear of, going by yourself. So maybe your fear is eating alone, right, in a restaurant. I would say do those steps now. Go to a restaurant, sit down, don't do takeout. A lot of us like to, kind of do takeout so we don't have to address this fear of sitting alone and maybe thinking people are looking at you, but they're not. All right. So this is one example. The other thing, again, back to Tony Robbins, in his early seminars, he used to do the fire walk. Now he would do that because as people gained confidence and they did the fire walk, right? And they got over that scary part, then the question becomes, well, if I can do that, what else can I do? So as you face your fears, maybe in everyday life, that you can think, well, if I can do this, I can certainly go solo on a trip. I can book that airfare. I can go eat at a restaurant alone. I can walk through a city alone. And that would build your confidence and conquer your fears. And your third little trick that you could do to help get past any kind of fears and to develop this confidence is, there's a fun thing that I did many, many years ago, is that, and you've probably heard people even tell you, but it would do something that scares you. I'll say once a week, right? I know some people say every day do something that scares you. That was a little hard for me, a little challenging. And I felt once a week, stepping out, whether it's, wearing something funky that you wouldn't normally wear, right? Getting outside your box, correct? Or maybe you're an introvert, and so maybe something that scares you would be to talk to somebody, just a random person, and strike up a conversation with a stranger. So doing something that scares you, it can be as little or as big as even, skydiving, right? That's a pretty scary event. So something that scares you helps develop this courage to get beyond our fears. So courage is like a muscle. And so we want to develop this muscle of courage so that you are not held back to take that solo trip, so that you are not fearful of going out there, that you become more decisive. You have this courage to, and it builds your confidence, as I said before. And as you practice that more and more, doing a solo trip after a while will feel like nothing. It will just be the norm for you as you become more self-confident in what you can do. So I hope these 3 tips help you break down the barrier of fear and develop your courage, because it's not the absence of fear. It's really that person that can, conquer those fears and move forward. Take action, right? Take action to break down those walls of fear for yourself. Because I truly want everybody to experience the remarkable, just the experience, the transformation that can happen when you take a solo trip, right? And everybody's going to be different, maybe in different season of their life. They're going to experience their solo trip with little different lessons learned, but it's always worth it. It's always worth it. So get out there. If you struggle with, having these fears and lacking courage, as you might say, it is in you. It is within you. I just have to practice it, take those steps forward, and get out there and have that adventure, big or small, sisters. Hey, sister travelers, did this podcast inspire and encourage you or move you to get out there and travel? Wonderful. There are 3 ways you can thank me. First one is leave a written review for the show on Apple Podcast. 2, share the show with your sister travelers, your friends, your family. And 3, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And thank you again for listening to the show. Sisters, be fearless, take the leap, and get out there and have an adventure.